Well, joining us now is MKP spokesperson Abel Tau. The party, of course, is calling for tighter gun controls in the wake, of course, of these shootings, particularly in Bekkersdal. And Abel Tau, thank you so much for your time. I read through your statement, and there was a lot that was raised, particularly in regards to what is taking place in Gauteng communities. We're speaking now about Bekkersdal. We know, of course, there's been an arrest in the Salisville mass shooting. We look back, a few weeks ago to the Reiger Park drive-by shooting. It's gun violence that is seeming going unabated, and communities are living in fear.
Thank you very much for having us, and good afternoon to viewers at home. Maybe first and foremost, let us send our sincere condolences to the families of the victims of the mass shooting in Bekkersdal, and we pray for speedy recovery for those who are still fighting for their lives in hospital. And you're absolutely correct. Look, when we look at this situation right now in Bekkersdal, we would be tempted to all, act out in rage, have a knee-jerk reaction, and obviously commentate as it has always been. But if you look at the whole challenge holistically in the whole of Gauteng, you then realize to say the issues that we are currently faced with are much deeper than what we're seeing in Bekkersdal, than what we've seen in Salisville, than what we've seen in Merimi, in Soshanguve, and what we've seen in Westbury, we have seen in the CBD of Johannesburg, right, with DJ Waras, and so forth. You realize that we are a community here in Gauteng of people who are under siege. We are a community who is on their own. I genuinely believe, and that's what we genuinely believe, that we do need serious reforms so that the policing in the province can be able to respond to the challenges that are faced specifically by the province. And this blanket approach is not assisting residents of Gauteng much as it is not assisting crime, in the different communities. We want to have a situation where in Gauteng, crime can respond to the exact challenges of Gauteng. Gun violence is rampant and on the rise. That's what we need to be responding to. You look at drugs and the use of substances. It's here. Human trafficking, it's here in Gauteng. Every crime and criminal syndicate or people who are doing crime would want to find themselves in Gauteng. If you look at the 30% construction mafia, it's here in Gauteng where we are the hardest hit, and therefore you want from the onset part of those reforms. Key amongst them would be obviously the replacement of Lieutenant General Mthomben, because we believe that the man under his watch, honestly, crime has spiked heavily. I mean, you look at a man who does not have the confidence to give over to his forces on the ground. We don't want to make direct comparisons, but if you had seen the MMC of Joburg coming out full force on the forefront, really rallying his troops to say, let's go out there and confront the challenges we are having. The same is true with the KZN police commissioner, and we don't want to make those comparisons. But the man here in Gauteng is absent. You hardly ever see him. I mean, police confidence is at an all-time low. You live in a province where you are told that police stations actually lock their gates when it becomes dark because police are afraid, and yet there is a commissioner who is supposed to be the #1 crime fighter in the whole of Gauteng, giving confidence to the police, but also bringing in strategies to respond to the crime here. And therefore we're saying, let's start there, and then we can move on to go and definitely bring into place sweeping reforms that are necessary to make sure that we combat crime directly here in Gauteng.
And so you say the confidence that, is lacking, as you say, in, of course, Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Ntombeni is a direct reflection in regards to perhaps maybe the courage that criminals have when it comes to the violence that we're seeing in the country. But we heard just a little bit earlier from spokesperson Athlenda Mate speaking about police making those breakthroughs, an arrest in the Salisville killing, 2 people taken in for questioning for the murder of Warwick Stock. Is this not enough in terms of the capabilities of the police when there are those breakthroughs? Or are you saying that the buck should actually stop with them, that they shouldn't even be the kind of spate of crime that we're seeing?
Actually, that's what we are saying. We are saying in other provinces like KZN, you are going to actually be reading news that they've intercepted, a vehicle with guns and the crime was to be committed. Here in Gauteng, we don't intercept any would-be criminal activity. We actually react to what would be criminal activity. What's even worse, when we went to Salisbury on the ground a day after the incident, there was not even a single police on site. The crime scene itself wasn't cordoned off. I mean, we sat there for hours. Literally, there was not even police visibility in an area barely hours after the incident that happened. And that just speaks to the morale of the force. You honestly have one of the most demoralized police forces in the country, if any, because you look at what they are confronted with and you look at the leadership that they have, really speaks to a mismatch. And we're saying, for starters, as Umkhonto Wesizwe was saying, let's fix it at the head, because when it rots, it starts from the head. If we are able to then get somebody who can fully rally these troops and make sure that they are energized to go out there and fight crime, then we can look into issues of crime intelligence, then we can look into issues of crime prevention, and we can go on to look at specialized units that can go on to fight these specialized forms of criminal activities. And we are saying, as Umkhonto Wesizwe, it just needs political will, and it starts with us getting the corrected, because we cannot be sitting here and be discussing that illegal migrants or even illegal minors are actually terrorizing communities, when we are just the first part of that sentence to say someone doing an illegal activity has gone on to have the brazenness to go out and even terrorize a community. That shouldn't be happening. It tells you of a country that is leaderless and a police force that does not have a head. And here in Gauteng, we are saying we need to start fix it there and go on to put other reforms in place.
Yeah. And you've likened Gauteng communities as a war zone. And you are calling for some of these reforms. Talk to me a little bit about how do we stop putting guns in the hands of criminals?
Look, one of the things that we have learned as Gauteng, you obviously have seen how easy it is to get a gun in the street. In fact, if you do any bit of investigative journalism, you could, from now where we are sitting, 2 hours from now, we could be having a gun on our hand that we could have obtained illegally. And we are saying this is not stuff that is difficult to track and trace. This is stuff that with a little bit of investment in intelligence gathering, it should be stuff that can be dealt with correctly. But also, we are saying part of the sweeping reforms that we want to call to is to look at stricter gun controls and making sure that it's not this easy to have people walk around with guns, carry ammunition, and they get a slap in the wrist, and then those very same arms and ammunition find themselves in the street. I mean, people have assault rifles, stuff that you can only find in war zones and in areas where there is serious fighting between armies. And that's the stuff that you find here. In fact, you even have them so brazen that some of them take videos and post on social media of them carrying and brandishing guns. You can imagine what happens. And that is what we are dealing with in Gauteng. You are dealing with some of the hardened criminals who no longer have regard for human life and no longer have regard for the laws of our country. When in Merimi, we were told that community patrollers were called out and they were tortured and killed, bit by bit through the night until they were only stopped by morning. And police refused to come to the scene because police said they were also afraid to come out and curb a situation where people were being massacred. And this is what we are dealing with in Gauteng. And we're saying we need bold, brave leadership in the police, and that will be supplemented obviously by bold leadership in the province that will be able to turn the tide against crime. We should strike fear in the hearts of criminals whenever they think of Gauteng, and this is not the case. In fact, right now, criminals know that they dare not go to KZN and they can obviously be safe here in Gauteng, and that cannot be business as usual. We need to stand up. We need to stand up as communities of Gauteng. We need to stand up as the citizenry and say enough is just but enough.
And just a final question for you. You've been with these communities from Salisbury when the shooting happened, Bekkersdal, and all of them somewhat having a very similar pattern. People enjoying themselves in a tavern or a late night, and it's of course festive. We're expecting this. And people coming into a room shooting indiscriminately. Talk to me about the fear on the ground from communities, what you know, what they've said, but also the MK in itself saying that they are planning for somewhat of a mass action if government, if the province in itself fails to stem what is this consistent shooting of individuals.
Look, when government fails to do what it's supposed to do, which is to guarantee the safety of its citizens, then it falls on all of us to mobilize and rally society to stand up, to be able to push them and force them to do what they're supposed to do. Unfortunately, we're in an era where this government can only hear that kind of a language. We as MKP will be doing exactly that. We'll be mobilizing communities starting at the turn of the new year. We have termed that a year of taking the revolution to the street. We believe that black people in particular and townships are the hardest hit as things stand with this kind of violent crime, and we think that it is time that we stood up, because clearly there is no one speaking for us. But the trend and the most common thing that you find, the common thread in all of these things, number one, is that it is organized gangs that are known in the areas, which tells you that police should know it is people who have been reported more than once every now in most of these areas, where communities have actually gone on to tell the police that that gang has been threatening so and so, or those people. It is people who are notorious in those areas for doing this kinds of crime. It often is not the first time that it happens. It's just that now it happens en masse and we are all enraged. Therefore, we are saying police must just go out there and do the work that they're supposed to do, period.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. That was the MK spokesperson here in Gauteng, Abel Tau, speaking, of course, on the issues of the gun violence and what we are seeing transpiring in Gauteng communities.